Howdy folks, I'm here in the shop and I'm working on a little hunting knife with sheep horn on it, and it got me to thinking that this is an opportunity for me to explain what I think are the priorities in placing your natural handle materials onto your knife. As a comparison to start with, I'll just take micarta. Now the micarta is essentially the same either side. You're cutting it out of a sheet and you're book matching it, and it's going to look fairly even. The only recommendation I'd have is to orient the pieces. Orient the pieces when you cut them out of a sheet the same direction. You wouldn't want one, I don't want one this way out of the sheet and then swinging it around 90 degrees to match up. There could be some difference in the way it's stacked or layered. It shouldn't be, but it's possible. So I cut mine either like this or like this, but the orientation is the same, if you see what I mean. Like this or like this. Okay. But that's a sheet that, again, is man-made. It's very consistent. And so it really doesn't matter that much most of the time which way you orient your material or how it lies in alignment with the knife, except I want the joint down the middle. Here's some natural material. When we think of natural materials, there's horn and there's antler, and those are probably the two most common natural materials. And those have to be cut out in such a way that you have an inner surface and the outer, which has the bark and or the texture that's the animal has naturally on the outside. So what considerations do we have to have when we're using natural material? Well, in my opinion, the best look on the knife, on the surface, is part of that, in some cases all of that natural texture that the animal provides for us. So if we get our material really thick, and we got two halves and it's thick, say 5/8 of an inch on each side, you're going to end, if you just use it as is, you're going to have a really heavy thick handle, 1.25 inches. We don't want that on a hunting knife especially. Or you're going to tend to use it that thick and then grind all the good stuff off on the outside. So what you have to do, of course, is to take off the material on the inner surface. Let me open this up. So this is the outside and this is the inside. So you're going to mill away or grind away the inner surfaces so they end up the proper thickness for your knife handle. And some of the things that determine the proper thickness are going to be not just how it feels in the hand, that too, that's the most important one, but that also determines when you make your guard to get it put onto the knife, you want it really close to your desired thickness for the knife to start with. So I'll just go back to this one right here. This is a common hunting knife that I make. So what I knew I was going to use sheep horn. Okay, I knew that ahead of time. So when I made this guard, and this is just like 90% shape, there's some more shaping to have to do. The front's finished, the base of it, facing the blade, is finished. Can't access that very easily again. So let me just set that little spacer off. That's just a little black spacer. So what I had to do, this was thick, like I was talking about earlier. This sheep horn, really pretty sheep horn. It's kind of a yellowy green almost look. It's still very big. The only thing I have for sure is the slot and the part that mates up to the back of the guard. And incidentally, I make sure that it mates up to the guard before I put the spacer in. See, that's tight. That doesn't have any play to it. Maybe up and down a few thousandths, maybe 5 thousandths. Side to side, none. That keeps the joint in line with the blade. If you do see a joint, you're going to see it in line with the blade edge and the spine. And that's the way I prefer them. And if you're taking a journeyman test, that's the way the judges prefer them. Now keep that in mind. Okay, so these were really thick, like 5/8 or 3/4. They were so thick, I could have used it on a Bowie knife if I'd had this much needed area. But I picked these two for this knife, and I brought some of that in a little bit. I still got plenty to go. But my priorities were this guard thickness. You got some ins and some outs in this natural material. Some ins and some outs. So they come a little bit long, so you can slide them back and forth on each other and match up the outs so that it matches up with the guard. So if you follow what I'm saying, you don't want to see, or if any of the back of the guard is showing, it's only so small that it's not going to be significant at all. You don't want a big gap showing there at all, if you can possibly help it. So learning how to use your natural material, as long as it's plenty long, you take the material away from the inside, get it dialed into this preferred guard thickness, which naturally the handle follows that thickness, and that sets the tone for the handle and a lot of about how it's going to feel and how it's going to be used. If you look close, you're going to see that the out part is just a fraction of an inch, maybe a 15 thousandths maybe sticking out. And this one is flush, and then there's a little bit of an end spot right there. But as I come to a finish on the guard and the natural material, that'll flush up. And the bottom is going to have to come up just a little bit. I want this part of the guard up underneath to line up with that. And this back here has got just a little bit extra for me to kind of align everything as well. So, natural material has texture. So the depth of that texture is going to probably come to play in your in some of your process. So you're going to have to think about these things throughout the process. So if you never use natural material, it's not, you can't approach it the same way you would a block of wood or even a set of scales that you glue back together around a hidden tang, which, by the way, this is. Get that off. See, that's a hidden tang. And I mean, tell you, that thing goes on there. It's snug. It's intended to be that way. So when you mill out your inside or cut it out with a chisel or a broach, you take it easy and you fit it often and a lot of times, and you make sure it's right. There's very little forgiveness on this, but there is some. So you have to be careful, have to follow your plan, know your material, and don't just stick to one material, just wood or micarta. Try a bunch of different things and learn what the priorities are for those different processes. So I'm going to finish this knife and I'm going to photograph it when it's done, and I'll have it at the end of the video. So we'll see how it turns out. But thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Well, I decided that I was going to do some grinding and show you how I shape the handle. This is that sheep horn hunter that I showed about the process and about how to dial in your natural handle material to meet the guard and what things to think about and what your priorities were. Well, I'm past that point now, so I'm ready to shape this handle. And I wanted to show you how I use the Rotary platin. Now, this Rotary platin is from Beaumont Metal, but I have it on my broadback grinder, my new broadback variable speed grinder. I have the Beaumont machines too, but I wanted to try this broadback with this attachment. And one of the reasons why, just to be honest with you, is because I can hook up my phone holder to record this. I can get it really close to it. And I'm going to move down now to the machine and just the part that we're working on. And so we're going to be in pretty close. I want to show you how we use that rubber-backed Rotary platin to shape the handle. So give me. Okay, this is the Rotary platin I was talking about. And again, it's a broadback grinder, but the receiver part that holds the tooling arm is the same size. So it's very convenient, and I really appreciate that fact. And this is again what we're working on. And notice that these rubber belts, they could probably be tighter, but I generally always work between these two wheels. They work best for me. Right now I'm starting off with a 60 grit belt, and I'm going to just rough this in and get it close, and this will be enough with this 60 grit belt. And I do have a 120 handy back here to switch over, and I'll finish this thing out this afternoon, pins and all. But I just wanted to share how this thing is useful and how I approach it even, and what parts of it I use and how I work it with my hands. Okay, I may not be able to talk and you may not be able to hear me if I did, because the machine's going to be running. We'll see how this works. Need to adjust tension. Okay, we can look at it for a second. Let me get that fan turned off. This generates enough dust that I needed a fan. Pull some of that dust away. So what we're seeing now is I'm getting it to look like a handle anyway on this blade. And I'm in general the right shape. It just needs to be smaller. All directions. Needs to be refined. Even the guard right in here is still rough. And I'm going to switch over to a 120 grit J-Flex. It's much more flexible than this stiff backing on this Cubitron. It's a great belt. But for what I got to do now, I need that flexibility to get up in these curves. And just for a softer touch all the way around. So anyway, let me grab this and turn it up here and hope that I'm on the camera. I'm using a gooseneck phone holder, and it's kind of new to me in this setting right here. So anyway, just wanted to share that. Well, the knife is now finished, and I wanted to again show it to you, and I'll show some more pictures and some, but you can see that the little ends that I spoke of, they're either completely down away from the guard, or it's just flushed out with the guard. See, there's even a little bit of that natural staining right there, but it's flush. So that's how close sometimes you're working. The tolerance for getting this right is pretty small to end up with the right size handle. So your guard sets the tone, and then you follow suit by how thick you make each of the pieces and how they dial into the center. So always keep that in mind. But I have some other pieces of material that I want to show you. Now this sheep horn on this knife it started off looking about like this right here, that thick. And it's the same type sheep horn. So you have to work from the middle both ways, leaving the outside intact as good as you can and lining it up with that guard. So there's quite a bit of thought that goes into it and some effort that goes into it. And I showed you this also, but this was the goat horn. It's the same exact principle. You just do the same thing. And here's some stag. I got some nice stag scales that are going to really look nice on a knife, but the inside is where you take any off that needs to be. An added caution and an added thing that you have to overcome is whenever your pieces, and this has a little bit of a curve, a warp in this particular piece. I don't know if you can see that, but it's curved. You either have to heat that and clamp it straight while it cools, or grind it straight. I've got plenty of room on this one to grind straight. If it was very bad, I'd have to completely rethink the use or cut it down so it's shorter. Or do something. You have to overcome that. Now here's one that's got a really bad, and this is also horn, Cape Buffalo horn. But look at that. It really has a lot of warp, a lot of curve to it. So this will definitely have to be heated up in some way. I'll probably use boiling, maybe not boiling, but a low boil. Put it in there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I want it to be kind of pliable. It's not mushy. It's just you can straighten it pretty easy. Clamp it straight and let it cool that way. So I don't know if I'll ever get to use that. We'll see, because you can see how bad warped that is. But I'd sure like to. It's got some really interesting texture. But just wanted to kind of do an overview summary of all the videos and all the little clips and all the things I was saying. Some of it is in a a setting where I'm talking over a machine or around a machine. But in this case, I can sit right here and just sort of do an overview. So thank y'all for watching, and I hope I've been able to share a little bit about the things that I think are priorities when using natural handle material. So again, like and subscribe. I appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you on the next one.